All right. Well, welcome back to Builders, Makers, Doers. We have a guest, Michael McKeone from Daedalus Construction, on with us today. He's going to tell us about his company, tell us about some cool things they're doing. Maybe we'll connect it to a little bit of risk management strategies that they've had over time. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, let's build off that. All right, well, welcome to the show, Michael. This is going to be fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, the first guest on Builders, Makers, Doers.
Cool. I'm excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, well, I thought this would be really fun to have you on because we started working together, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. But it was fun to learn the history of your company, the work you guys do, and thought like this would be a really fun one to get and tell the story to everybody listening because you guys do a lot of cool stuff. You've been through a journey in the company that I think is cool. So why don't we just start there? Give us the history of the company going back to 1977, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And kind of tell us how you guys got to where you're at today.
Yeah. You know, my father had founded Daedalus with a couple other guys in 1977. So this is our 48th year in business.
Wow.
So it's no...
In the concrete industry.
In placing concrete, not asphalt, not caulking joints, we pour concrete. And that is like... That's what we do.
So like, what's that in dog years? They say it's 7-1. So like in concrete, you're like
that's another
1,000-year-old company.
Yeah, pretty much. And the turnover rate for concrete companies is only second to restaurants. So they turn over quite a bit.
Oh, really? Interesting statistic there.
Yeah, restaurants got us beat by a little bit, but we're catching up. But yeah, 48 years in placing concrete. So huge credit to old man. I mean, he really worked his tail off many years to keep that thing alive. I remember hearing battles as a kid of staying in business and incredibly different learning curves to get where they had to, get to the next step. How do you place a bigger pour? Because you started off doing 20-yard pours. How do you get to 100-yard pours? Because it's completely different. And so it's the history of we started off as a flat work company, and now we do foundations, flat works, walls, massive pours up in the air. A lot of my first 6-7 years of experience was big up in the air, flat finish floors, doing big data system centers, doing major hospitals.
You're talking multiple stories up your pouring.
Yep. Big story buildings, and kind of a little bit getting thrown to the wolves. Like you got to just, you man up and you got to learn this. And being an employee in that kind of system and just seeing how the other employees react, and you're growing and you're starting to do such massive structures, buildings. And, I have 16 years of experience now. And so, starting off in that and really getting to where we were doing, on the bigger end of our pours I started about 2010. And so my experience was getting in and starting in on kind of like 80 to 100-yard pours. And by the time I'm in my lower to mid 20s, our average pour size is more like 200 to 400 yards. And it went from 400 to 500.
Give everybody a perspective. Like, what size of a job would that be like?
Okay. Concrete's measured in cubic yards. So it's very volume based, density and volume. So like these are 20,000 square foot.
Big buildings.
Yeah, these are big, that's a lot of
the structure.
Yep. And, you do parking lots and things like that too, but you usually try to keep those, we call it in our industry, you base everything off your pour size.
Oh, okay.
And so for us, we don't like pouring wider than 100 feet. You want to actually 60 foot wide is usually our kind of sweet spot, but you don't want to go wider than about 100 feet. And that width really matters because you can get cold joints and different things that can affect your product and beat your guys up too much. I mean, if you're pouring on Tuesday, you still got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to pour.
Yeah.
So you got to place and do your thing, do it intelligibly so you're not wearing out the guys all week long. And, so I had a pretty unique, just being one of the employees and learning from the ground up without really being a part of the game plan, just seeing what it was like to be an actual employee in a system, and that being the beginning of my career, I find very valuable to how we got to where we're at in 2025.
That's awesome. I've always thought about you guys when you think about all the different contractors and trades that go into building a building.
Yeah.
You know, the concrete and the flat work and everything, I always think about as almost the most stressful because like, and this is, I don't know, but like if you're a framing or you're doing something like electrical or whatever, you can stop,
Yep.
you know, like mid job, if, you know, something's not right, or if you got wet concrete in a truck that's on its way, like you got to get that poured or it's getting poured somewhere.
Yep.
You know, I always think about that with the size of jobs you guys are doing. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of, you know, just loads of concrete you got coming out that you've got to get poured one way or another.
Yep.
And I mean, it's going to harden. So you got to continue on.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've got any comments on that, but I've always thought about that and how hard that would be to manage on a big job like that.
That there's probably other trades, you know, so, you know, the rod busters always say they got the hardest trade, you know, fracking oil is very difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
But like you said, there's always a stopping point for those. Yeah. The biggest thing, the hardest thing about our industry is that you are on a time limit.
Yeah.
And that time limit is expiring as soon as your day starts.
Yep.
Yeah. Whether it's the weather coming at you, whether it's concrete getting too hard too quick, and you can't, you know, you can only be so good. It's always going to be different. Every day you're learning something. The key that we try to do differently, and this is what helps us handle that problem, is that you don't want to be mid-pour battling problems.
Yeah.
You're just like any big football game, you know, the Chiefs Lions played last night. That preparation that goes into that game is what sets you up for success. Every problem requires time and attention. But when you're mid-pour, you don't have time and attention. You're already running out of time. So you have to get your problem solved, and your game plan has to be thought of ahead of time. So you're not dealing with, you can't be giving away your time and attention mid-pour. You're already out of time. You know, you're already out.
Oh, that's great.
So you got to get it beforehand. So huge in our industry to be prepared and always ahead of schedule.
So
absolutely.
So 48 years ago, doing a lot of flat work, not as much vertical, and talking about what you just talked about with the preparation, like walk through, like, was that a natural evolution to go from kind of where the company was founded under your dad's leadership to where it is today? Were there strategic decisions along the way to shift more into some of these more complex, larger jobs, and then pairing it with, we've got to be prepared. We've got a game plan for this stuff and go on to the job site ready and not have the problems come up mid-pour. So I don't know, maybe just talk through like how because that's a relatively big shift, granted over a decent period of time, but.
That's a pretty good question. Absolutely. I kind of do feel it should have always naturally gone in that direction. It really depends on the experience of your team and what projects can they handle. If you stay doing very similar projects to what you've always been doing, you absolutely, and this was evident when I first showed up, and you've been doing 100-yard or less, 100. I mean, yeah, they had experience doing larger pours, but it wasn't as common. They really were about 100 yards was a huge pour for us back then. And when you're doing that every day, and that's been the norm for 10 years, 10, 15, 20 years, of course, you're not going to have putting more money and time, you're not going to be pushing your team to be so, you have a routine established, and it's nice when your team is in that routine and you don't have to bug them, they can do their routine, and, you don't have to be focused on training and developing. When you start jumping into a much larger chunk of, different scale of difficulty, the projects that you take on, you absolutely need to make sure you're prepared for that, because as soon as you start running into problems on these projects, your guys are getting their butts kicked.
Yeah.
And that preparation can't fall onto the basic employee. That does have to kind of start from the top down.
Yeah.
So absolutely, it was kind of a natural thing to start progressing towards as we started doing, and that really becoming our bread and butter, being the more bigger, difficult, heavy commercial work, not so much the smaller flat work.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I have appreciated in our conversations, and you can dive into this as much as you want, but I don't know if right sizing of the company is the right perspective, but I remember, you talked about how you guys grew really fast for a period of time.
Mhm.
And then kind of as you got into more of the leadership role, realizing like we've got to make sure that we're growing at the right pace, taking on the right work for where we're at versus just trying to grow to grow. Talk about that experience a little bit, kind of when you were taking over and thinking through that. Because I think a lot of companies look at grow, 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 and that's we got to make hay while the sun's shining type of thing.
Yeah. And maybe other companies everyone's got their own trick up their sleeve, right?
Yep.
Mine was that I was an employee and I didn't have a say in what was really much going on. I was told what to do on an everyday basis. And as I got older and started to see we needed to be changing or developing in a certain way, of course, then you clash, right, with the old man and things. But we got that done. But when I bought the company 5 years ago, I knew we needed to take a step back and not start taking on so much work, but focus on making sure my team can be doing the work that we were doing. Because when you change ownership, you change a lot of the manpower. We changed, a whole new estimating, accounting, everything had changed with, the time. And that natural changes are going to happen over time, like we just were asking. But being an employee allowed me to see that my team wasn't necessarily ready to keep forcing growth, really. And it wouldn't have worked. We would have collapsed for sure. Now, what I also saw and what is going really well was if we do slow down, we're doing the hardest work that we can. This is really, really difficult work, even if we're not doing big structures. If we're just doing regular, concrete work in and of itself is really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Any of my competitors are going through tough times. This is hard work.
Yeah.
What I realized is for at least where we were at, that we needed to not grow like we talked and get better at what we were just doing as a team in our own company. Focus on ourselves, not trying, we'll make money. We don't need to make, we can get bigger in a healthier way when my team is ready for it.
That's a great way to put it.
And not forcing that issue too soon. I was an employee. I saw where these guys were at. I knew where they were kind of, at what level they were ready to take on a difficulty. And that's the project we'd been trying to go for the last couple of years. Not try and take on, every data system center that's coming through and those real difficult, but easier said than done.
Yeah.
We had to become more team focused and cater to our strengths and not just what my strengths were. What is the actual team strengths? So
that's definitely something we've seen firsthand. I know I have, and I think it's rare in the construction industry by and large is for somebody to do what you just said, is spend time to slow maybe the work itself down, but to build the people, build the leadership team, position for all of the right kind of growth going forward. So I think for people listening and watching this, like that's something you guys did really well. Kudos to you. You've got an incredible leadership team. I've met with them. We've met with them on a regular basis. Everybody's on the same page. They know their role. They know their skill set. There's, uniformity in going through it. You're not scared to seek outside advice as well with that team, all to do the things to get better. And I think that gets missed for whatever reason a lot in the trades, because we're so
absolutely
used to being, doing the work and in the work.
Yeah.
And I think generationally too, a lot of businesses that are watching this are transitioning from a prior generation. And the reality is that generation built it on their back doing the work.
Absolutely.
And there is a shift to say, all right, we now have a company. Wow, all of a sudden we've got some cool things going and it needs more structure. And so I commend you for that. And I don't know if there's a question in this necessarily other than or more of a comment, but I think it'd be kind of fun for people watching this here, because despite all that, you mentioned it earlier, things still happen.
Yeah.
Like you're mid-pour, the weather's coming in, whatever. Maybe what comes to mind that we can talk through and you can share? Like, what is something that you're like, that is one of the wildest things that kind of presented itself in the middle of a job to us that we had to overcome? Is there one that comes, or is there something that rears its head on a somewhat regular basis? Or what are the things that you deal with? It'll be fun to talk through.
Yeah. Oh man. I can imagine every concrete guy that would listen to this just go, every day is just some type of, it is that fast paced.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to stay in this a long time, you got to figure out how to pour concrete fast. Cause like I said, as soon as your day starts, your time's running out.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that got me funny that you worded that way was one thing that attracts guys into our industry. And I mean, how did I even want to stay in? Even because when I first started, it was, you shut up and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the nice way to put it.
Yeah.
And, but you hear the battles from the old guys, and having that type of form and leadership that I was able to come in, and what we try to do for our guys now is to share those, not talk about these problems that have happened, talk about those battles that you've gone through, share those stories because they are fun. And when you do get good at this work, I mean, it inspires kind of the young guys to want to stay in it too, because it is very complicated to pour these things and not have them go bad. To be working as a team and not have yelling and fighting on a massive pour is an art.
Oh, man,
And it's an orchestra. We have had many, many battles where you are, I mean, oh man, I mean, many times. To say a specific one, I mean, I'll probably come up with something.
Every job.
Well, I think you said something that's interesting too for people watching this. Like you mentioned it earlier, family business. You grew up in the business. So like you've seen it all, you experienced it firsthand, and you were able to lend that knowledge to these battles, these fights, these things that come up. It's not like you're coming in not having done it yourself. And so I think people listening to this that have the luxury of being in a family business, like lean into that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you came up through the work and you've had the battle scars, that's an incredible way to go out and obviously lead by example, but get people to get behind when these things go wrong because you've been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a message in that conversation that
absolutely
people need to lean into, because there are a lot of family businesses, there are a lot of generational businesses in the trades, which is what's really cool about the trades. And I've seen that with you and your passion with the business as well. Like it's clear that it's been there since you were literally like in diapers, right? And so I think we have to lean into that. And that's really cool. But so all right, not coming up with a problem. What's your favorite project?
I think the all-time favorite that I think for me personally might have been the HDR tower in Exarban. That was, at that time, it was very much still, we had a foreman storm off and quit on the job, threw the hard hat, all the good stuff.
The problems mid-pour.
Oh yeah. And it wasn't even mid-pour. We're just in the setup phase of the project, getting ready for the pours. And the foreman, who had been with us for some time, was upset. And if you've been doing this for a while, it's pretty easy also to get in your head that that you've been treated unfairly and things like that. And I actually, at the time, I do side with him. I remember the guy, but threw the hard hat, was off the job. And I was 25, and the HDR tower in Exarban is a huge project.
Mm-hmm.
We had a big data system center in Council Bluffs going on that I'm not going to say the name of. We're not supposed to. We had a UNMC tower going. We also had the airport parking garage going at the same time. We had another UNMC building just starting up towards the end of the HDR job. And I remember, so when that foreman had quit, we had no one to run that job. That was the guy that was supposed to be running the job.
Oof.
And I was 25 and I said, I can do it. And I don't think I said I can do it. That's not how you can even talk to my way. And I said, I'm going to do it. Because that's what the company needed. And that's what I'm going to do. And it was really towards the beginning of the job, but there was already a multitude of issues just with how that curtain wall of those window panels are. I mean, that's how that's designed. It's called a curtain wall. And that whole window system ties directly to your foundation and to the actual structural shell of the building. So it's a waterproof structure, obviously, but it's pretty cool how they do those. And that was one of my that was my first massive job that I personally had to be a part of. So I have always a little bit of sentimental value towards that building.
Yeah,
we poured the very top roof. Going into the winter season, I mean, it's October. So you're going into battles with all your customers right now because they don't want to pay for winter conditions. Mm-hmm. And there's things in our contract and how you place that concrete per ACI standards that you're going into wintertime, you have to follow those standards. And that money can't come out of our pocket, but your customer also doesn't want to pay for it either. But you know, that battles every year. And at that time, we had a very fortunate warm fall because I think in my opinion, we were having to make up for, there's different things. And we were so spread thin at that time. We took on too much and we were just too spread thin and we had issues of our own. But yeah, we poured the very top roof of that on December 2nd.
Whoa.
And we didn't have to have any heat or anything on it. Very fortunate because it was December. It was a Friday, December 2nd, and very difficult. We didn't have to pay a bunch of money to heat it up or anything like that. So
for anybody that's not watching this in the Midwest, December 2nd can be pretty cold in these parts.
Yes. And for it to maintain a temperature of above 40 degrees for over a few day period to do that for us was awesome. Right. Yeah. So anyways, that was probably I would say my favorite project. Yeah. I mean, that one I had sentimental value too. So I think that was kind of,
And for everybody listening to that beats out putting a helipad on top of a hospital, which I also think is a really cool project.
Probably the coolest individual pour was maybe the helicopter pad on top of the Buffett Cancer Research Center. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool story. Thanks for sharing. Because I imagine that was a little sooner than you anticipated running a project like that.
Very stressful.
Yeah, but again, you had
in our industry, you got to wake up, tie your boots on, and go. You can only complain for so long.
Love it. Yeah, because Arbin Village is so those that are watching and wondering what we're talking about. It's a cool area, kind of a social district in Omaha, and that building's kind of at the center of it. So very cool. Yeah, love it.
That's awesome. So then kind of getting into some of the conversations we've had, one of the things that I've loved what you've done, and I want your perspective for everybody out there, is you've brought in that leadership team for the company, and not only brought them in, but really in a short period of time here, really developed them into a true leadership team where, I mean, you can talk about it, but they're the ones day to day running the company. Which then frees you up to do more of that strategic thinking and where are we going? How are we going to get there? Making sure we're not taking on too much work, but we're taking on the right amount of work to continue to grow the way that we want and things like that. So I know you've put a lot of work and effort into doing that. And I just love your perspective in going through that transition, really, to that team where it's not everything. You're not the dictator running everything. Yeah. You've really disseminated that down to the team.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely helps that at one point in time, I was one of them.
Yeah.
And I can relate to them and what they're going through and what they need from management. What do they need in management to be successful running these jobs? However, a lot of the ideas, I had the vision to kind of get this system. I mean, vision is super important to get your team aligned on that vision and going in a single direction as a unit and a team. Can't stress the importance of that, especially in our industry. Every day you're going to work as a team and a unit. But to have what I feel most fortunate about was my predecessors always wanting to do a high quality job.
Yeah.
And in order, a lot of people can go pour concrete, but to go do it at a high quality job where your product is lasting that true 40 years that your customer is paying for is very difficult. It becomes then an orchestra. It is no longer just throwing some mud down and finishing it. To place concrete at a high enough level to get it, especially in this day and age with all the de-icers tearing up our streets and things like that, in order to get it to place it in a way that it does last that 40 years, that your customer is paying for and they are expecting, it is very difficult and it is an orchestra. The ideas that I will say, a lot of the ideas to help us get us there. Why is my leadership team so successful and how they're doing so good is because they are using a lot of their own ideas.
Yeah.
They are the right guys for the job. They are very intelligent, and I don't hold them back.
Yeah,
I know they got the right ideas. I've been there. I know what they got to do. However, every day is something different. There's a new way, and they are using their own ideas, and they know based off we're going in the right vision and the right path that they know how to attack those. And to be honest, a lot of days it's get out of their way because I'll mess it up. You know, they're really good at what they do, and their ideas have led us to this success in a lot of ways.
So then what does your role really transition into? Because I think, you know, you're still young, right? You've taken over the business, and I think really elevated that team to allow you to take on a different role. But I don't know that a lot of folks in your position would have taken it to the point you have with really trusting them to run the company. I mean, it's not like you're looking to retire in 5 or 10 years and trying to find that next team. Just talk through your mental perspective with that. Because again, I think there's a lot of people that would have taken a different path, and I have a lot of respect for you and what you've done around that with your team. And so talk through that, and then just what your role has evolved into.
Yeah. My role, and I talk about this with my leadership team, and is to be ensuring that vision is being successfully utilized and keeping that team on that path to go on that vision.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, but also my vision also aligns with the employees. And that's huge. First off, anybody who says it's the old school thing to say we love pouring concrete. And yeah, we love our job. I mean, it is fun to do. When you're good at it, you're laughing with your guys, you're having a riot. I mean, honestly, it's one of the last free, jobs you can have out there. You're not, you can say what you want, and you can have fun laughing with your guys, and it's a blast when you're good at it. At the end of the day, though, it can be very abusive. And so letting your guys, it's really hard work. The nice part about our trade specifically is the amount of effort you put into your every day and your team, the award is immediate. You get to see immediately the progress that you've made. You and your team, the guys that you work so hard with all day long, get to see what you accomplished together. And that is actually a huge win for a guy. I mean, as men in today where you're not, everything's tough right now for anybody. And these guys deserve to get paid well. They deserve to go home and not be completely wrecked. And, all they can do is go home and sleep, so kind of having structure and stability and schedule. So that's part of my vision. And I try and help us stay in that direction. There's a lot more that goes into that. And, unfortunately, I kind of tease my guys, and although there's truth to it, unfortunately, I move in time as kind of a figurehead position. And, I'm embarrassed to say that, because as a guy that went from swinging a sledgehammer, thousands of times a day, setting forms, grading, doing whatever, pouring concrete, doing every job you possibly can, picking up trash, whatever.
Yeah.
And now you got to step back, and you got to know, it's time to let your guys do it.
Yeah.
And, anyways, we tease me that I'm just some figurehead guy now, but there's truth to it. Although in the way that I always say I want to be my team's best weapon for them.
Yeah.
And I support them. I know how difficult of a day they're having. It is that hard of work. And I always want them to be successful. So however I can do to help that.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because in order for your guys to do their job and be able just to go do, they need somebody that's looking at the different perspective, right?
Absolutely.
And looking at the future, because it's difficult to do both at times. And,
Absolutely.
we always talk about working on the business versus in the business. And I think that's really important that, your role is now, I'm sitting here working on the business. I'm going to try to find the hurdles that are 2 steps down the road to pull it out of your way early. And I want you to be able to go and do the job and finish the job and pour the concrete, not have to worry about the stuff down the road. And I think that's super important that, I'm sure in your industry, folks are calling, giving you a bunch of crap on some of that. But I also think it's very important for them to be successful in their role, not having to worry about where are we going to be financially? Where are we going to be? Because you've got your eye on that,
Yep.
and they can go and just do their job.
Absolutely.
And I think that's often overlooked because, especially again, in coming up through the business, that's a lot of what people know. They know doing the work, not taking that next step to being the leader. And that's a really big shift, I think, that's lost in a lot of people.
That's, you hit the nail on the head. And actually, I was going to highlight on that. Absolutely. And like I said, this is, if you are not prepared, you're going to have problems, and those problems require time and attention. Well, that work will get abusive, and your guys will no longer be thinking that they're happy and pouring concrete and working, having a fun time pouring concrete with their guys working next to them, and then they're going to start feeling that they're just a dog being told what to do.
Yeah.
And it goes from happy to getting beat up real quick. And what I found, especially for concrete guys who are, and I, maybe other guys feel differently, but I feel like my team really gives on an everyday level, they are trying their absolute best. And that means you need time off. You need rest and recovery. You really do. And especially in any industry. And so I really wanted a system, and part of that vision alignment is to be successful enough and to have a team that there's more guys, not one guy has to do so many different jobs, really breaking those jobs up into a healthy amount where one guy isn't taking on too much, and you can have that right amount of time off, which is huge in our industry.
Totally.
It doesn't really matter what you do. You're going to be overworked because your body's taking the toll and your mind. I really want to, we move in that direction, and that splitting that things up and not just relying on a few people to do so many different jobs, even though anybody in a management team is doing more than one job, and you have more than one hat to wear. But that has, as difficult as it's been to get there, a huge reward for the guys, for me, for us as a company.
Yeah.
To be able to do the job with, and not to do the job with the right amount of energy, and not having to every day putting excessive amount of energy into something.
Yeah. And when I thought about you being a guest on here, what I hoped we'd be able to kind of get to the audience is what we've talked about here. And the word's been mentioned many times, vision. And I think what you're describing in your role and what you've stepped into is you are that visionary. You are able to cast, and I know this, short, medium, and long-term visions out there. And you mentioned it earlier. Now you've got a team, leaders, that are able to make their own decisions and carry those decisions forward. And they're able to do that because they know it aligns with the vision.
Absolutely.
And that's the piece that I think, I hope people can take that away. Again, specifically in the trades and in construction, it's unique to see that. It's rare, unfortunately, to see that where, somebody realizes my value in this company is to step back, create the vision, cast a vision, and empower the people that I believe in, that I trust in, that I know how to do the job, to go out and make decisions. They're going to be confident that those decisions align with this vision, and they're going to carry them forward. You can't be at every job. You can't be in every meeting. You can't be at every single thing that's going, because you've got a company now. It's not just a person and so I think that's the piece that I've watched you, or I've learned that you guys have had a ton of success under your leadership doing. And I hope that's, something people watching this are able to take away and ask themselves too, are we doing this in our business, or am I getting in the way because I'm still doing too much of the work, or I'm getting in the way of decisions, or people have to, I think one of those telltale signs is when people make decisions, they're kind of going to you saying, so boss, what do you think? And you mentioned they're taking those decisions and running with them, but it's because you've casted a vision.
Yeah.
And I commend you for that. I don't know if there's something you want to add to that, but that's my perspective. And I think that allows a company certainly to scale, certainly to grow, to do good work, and to keep the right people and attract the right people too.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, both of you guys have said some, I have tried very hard to, this company is my family and my life. It is. But I will say, truly, kind of what you're saying is, that has been, I'm very grateful to have the mentors that I've had in my life, because I was able to recognize that based off of listening and some of that coming from my own employees and other mentors to know when to step back, because you, as the owner, you are emotionally attached to the business. And when you're doing that work hands-on and you want that work perfect because you want to create that 40-year product, no, you do have to get out of the way sometimes because you're making it worse or harder on your guys. But ultimately, in order for me to reach this, it has been a ton of help to be able to have the conversations with other businesses. Why I have reached out to Ellerbrock-Norris for help is because it's very, very difficult to keep a very, very high-powered, intelligent team staying focused in line. And for me I want the help because I know ideas coming out of one head is not as good as multiple.
Yep.
And it does, there are a lot of things, especially in our concrete industry that we feel is so tough. We're not like any other industry or business. And I realize that, and while that might be true, it's true in any business. Mm-hmm. And to go get a consultant and to go get that help has also helped our company realize that there is a level of professionalism that we need to work towards. And having the conversations with you guys it has been a lot of help to my team to help us, because I'll be honest, this last year and even from this summer to now, I mean, some amazing leaps and bounds. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate that as well. I mean, we enjoy having those conversations. I couldn't agree with you more in that sometimes just that outside third party that can ask the right questions and drive the right conversation. We kind of joke internally. We're like, we'll go in and ask 2 or 3 questions, then your team kind of takes the conversation and we're just there to shift and mold a little bit. But that's what happens with talented teams is all you need is sometimes a little bit different shift in perspective. And you go, oh, you're smart enough to recognize it. And then
absolutely.
Then you tweak your strategy based on that. And so it's been really fun to work with you guys as well. Cool. And we appreciate the partnership.
We feel the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're already coming up on time here. We've covered a lot of ground. I think it's pretty fun to hear your story. Is there anything, as you look at jobs you guys are doing now, anything that, is top of mind that's kind of fun you guys are working on? We talked about your favorite, but anything currently that you want to leave everybody with?
My guys will always argue to say that the projects at the zoo are the most fun. And finishing up the new animal hospital at the zoo was very cool.
Yeah, Omaha's Henry Door to the Zoo.
Omaha's Henry Door to the zoo.
One of the top in the country, if not the top in the country.
Yeah, and what a blast. It is very tough, very strict standards, and we do our best to not only get those done but exceed standards. But it's fun when you got a peacock flying out of nowhere, landing on don't land on the concrete. But you know what? The zoo's actually pretty cool about that. They like the footprints, but it's amazing. And you do get some amazing stories out of that. And they got this old grizzly, I don't know if it's a grizzly bear, but old bear kind of right next to the animal hospital that would kind of come out and watch us work sometimes. And it's a blast. So that would be the funnest, and it always will be. The zoo is always going to be the funnest. Yeah.
Well, that's what's really cool about, the audience watching this, people in the trades, is you do get to put your stamp literally on things in the communities and things that are there for 40 plus years and hundreds of years that stand the test of time that people get to enjoy. I mean, the zoo is a great example. You guys are a piece of what is providing so much incredible entertainment to thousands of people over time, and it is an incredible place. And it's been fun to work with your company. It's been fun to watch the energy you bring, the passion you bring. I mean, it's funny, you talk about a story like that and it's like, oh, okay, you're a concrete company. Well, then you peel back the layers and you figure out, A, you're doing really cool things. B, you're having fun. You're running a business and you're growing something that is doing really good things in the community. I see it doing that for a long time. And it's been fun. Fun getting to know you. Hopefully we get to get you back on here at some point in the future too. And we can talk about, the next coolest project you were in the middle of. But,
awesome. No, that was great. We appreciate your time and coming on, and everybody out
Thanks
there.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see everybody next time.